7 times over the last decade, from this podium, Jeff Skoll has presented a special award from the Skoll Foundation to someone who could rightly be called a global treasure. You all know the expression, wild horses couldn't keep him away? Well, the wild horses this year have kept him away. The wild horses of serious pain and a major spinal surgery just last week. So that's what's kept our beloved chairman and founder from making this award to his magnificent friend. I do, though, know what he'd want me to say about him. But first, a bit about the Skoll Global Treasure Award. Our prior honorees are an illustrious group: Archbishop Desmond Tutu, Muhammad Yunus, Malala Yousafzai, Graça Machel, His Holiness the Dalai Lama, and last year, Bono. We don't have formal criteria for this award. Young, old, rock stars, politicians, priests. We just know when there's someone in our midst whose integrity is inspiring and whose record of achievement in addressing the world's most pressing problems is nothing less than stunning. Jimmy Carter, 39th President of the United States, is that someone, the quintessential man for all seasons. His life's work extends from farming to nuclear physics to politics, played out on local, national, and global stages. Over the entire arc of his life, he has never equivocated when it comes to human rights and humanitarian action. He's also a man who engages as easily and effectively with the ordinary folks who queue up for his Sunday school lessons at the Maranatha Baptist Church in Plains, Georgia, as he does with international leaders across every sector and geography. As president, he normalized US diplomatic relations with China and launched the process engaging Egypt, Israel, and the United States, which led to the Camp David Accords and the historic 1979 peace treaty between Egypt and Israel. Let me underscore that this treaty endures to this day, despite all the upheaval in the region since its signing. Yeah, pretty amazing. Upon leaving the White House, the president and his wife, Rosalind, founded the Carter Center to resolve conflict, promote democracy, protect human rights, and combat disease. Some of you will remember President Carter came to the Skoll World Forum 10 years ago. He told us about one of those battles against guinea worm, a particularly vicious illness. When the Carter Center began its work, more than 3.5 million people suffered from guinea worm. But leadership and perseverance has paid off. A week ago, authorities announced that the last mile march is now down to the final inch. Guinea worm is within 5 cases, all in Chad, of being eradicated from the face of the earth. President Carter is a founding elder, one of 12 independent global leaders convened by Nelson Mandela in 2007, who continue to provide moral leadership for the world. And for his life's work, he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize. On behalf of Jeff Skoll and the Foundation's Board of Directors, we are so very honored to present the 2018 Skoll Global Treasure Award to Jimmy Carter.
How are you? What's that? Thank you. Well, first of all, I want to thank Sally, and we just made a video for Jeff, wishing him well and hoping he'll be here from now on. And all of the social entrepreneurs who are here, who have taken advantage of their brilliant minds and their entrepreneurial spirit to develop programs that were beneficial for others and were designed that way. I notice the proximity is the main thrust of this session, and in the modern day world, we are pretty well proximate. It was worth a trip here just to be able to listen to Brian speak. And I watched him on 60 Minutes Sunday night, where he pointed out the counties in our country that had been the host people for the assassination, you might say, the lynching of 4,300 people. And I hated to hear it, but my county was one of them. We have 3 people in our county that were lynched. Well, anyway, proximity is very important to us, and in a modern day society, we are all proximate. And we can use this proximity for advantage with instant contact with each other. I think about a fourth of the people on earth now are part of Facebook, and all the other ways that we can communicate, we're close to one another. We'll have almost instant transportation. I woke up yesterday morning in my hometown, and tomorrow morning I'll wake up in Georgia again. So that's a good trip, thanks to Jeff's airplane, by the way. Ordinarily, I travel by Delta, but this is a special occasion, which is not atypical of what Jeff and them have done for me. This is a time of soberness, though, because for the first time in history, we are now facing the possibility of the end of all human beings on earth and all living creatures on earth. When I was elected President of the United States, one of the first things I did was to get a briefing from our military experts, the generals and admirals and so forth, and I was informed that under my direct personal control as a single human being, I had more than 15,000 nuclear weapons available to me. And I knew that Brezhnev in Russia and Soviet Union had the same amount, and that China and France and Great Britain had weapons as well. And I was told that if we reached a point of incompatibility with each other, particularly between the United States of America and the Soviet Union, and any exchange of nuclear weaponry would result in radioactive fallout and the explosive power, and particularly the darkening of the sky so the sunlight couldn't reach the earth for several weeks, that it would result in the end of all life as we know it on earth, with the possible exception of microbes. With the realization of that, and also the damage that can be done to the earth from global warming, a few people on high ground and infertile areas can possibly survive, but it'll be a great damage to our population as well on earth. These kind of things are very sobering, and it brings me and many others to wonder, what can we do about it? I think one of the things we can do is to take advantage of our proximity, of a knowledge of one another, to decide whether we can live possibly in peace with people on earth with whom we disagree or not. That is a basic question for us to face. I had to face it when I was in the White House. All the other presidents since Eisenhower have had to face that same question, and it's one that President Trump faces now. With the altercation possible between North Korea and the United States, that could precipitate an exchange of nuclear weapons. We have the opportunity, though, to learn from the basic principles of human rights, from our deep religious faith, whether we Christians or Jews or Muslims or Buddhists or whatever, we can extract the finest aspects of our religion and apply it in our own personal lives and in the lives of those whom we support in elections to resolve that question favorably and learn to live with one another, but also to care for one another, to be concerned about one another, and to try to help one another instead of being willing to go to war with each other. That is a question that we face now. So getting along with each other and treating each other as equals is one of the hardest things for us to do on earth. It's very difficult for any person, including me and you, not to feel at least superior to some other people. We have that inclination as human beings to be superior, at least in some aspect of life. Maybe because of the color of our skin. We face that in the deep South where I grew up and where the lynchings occurred, or between men and women. I happen to be a Christian, and the Bible that I study says that in the eyes of God, there is no difference between Gentiles and Jews. There's no difference between slaves and masters. There's no difference between men and women. Period. That is difficult for us to accept. The Carter Center recently has kind of changed its position. In the end of the last century, I was asked to make two major speeches, one in Taiwan and the other one in Oslo. And the question I was asked to address was, what is the greatest challenge that human beings face in the coming millennium? At that time, I said it was the disparity in income within countries between the rich and poor, and the favorable treatment that rich people get from governments whom they can influence, and on the other hand, between rich countries and poor countries. But we've changed our mind, I have, and we now feel that the greatest disparity on earth, the greatest challenge that the human beings face is the discrimination against women and girls. This morning I covered that subject, encouraged by Mabel, who used to be head of a elders organization, and she extracted more information out of me than I intended to provide, which she always has been able to do. But anyway, I'm going to be quite brief. One of the things I pointed out this morning was that the unknown aspect of gender prejudice is the loss of life of females. For instance, in the country of India, for every 100 women alive today, there are 112 men. So something happened to the other 12 girls. In China, the disparity is 118 to 100. So 18%, you might say, of Chinese women have been executed primarily by their parents. And the same thing in India. In one region of India, the World Health Organization tells us that the ratio is 100 to 154. It's estimated that 160 million women, because of prejudice against females, are no longer living on earth that ought to be alive. Well, those things are of deep concern. And we are struggling, we and the Skoll Foundation and many others, to provide equality of treatment and respect between men and women. The overall concept is for us to do that with everyone. I would say that down through the ages, human beings have prevailed because of our superior minds compared to other animals. There was a time when there was an equal struggle. In fact, many animals had an advantage because of their strength and their rapidity and their fangs and so forth, or tusks. Well, we changed that. Human beings changed it with the development of weapons, with spears, bows and arrows, and then guns. Human beings became superior to animals. What's the next step in the evolution of human beings? We face the challenge that I've already outlined, and that is, can we ever learn with proximity constantly increasing now and in the future to be able to live peacefully without military conflict between us and people with whom we have an honest difference of agreement, or who look differently, or who worship differently? That's a big question we face. It's a very sobering thing to realize that what we need to fall back upon as a guide is the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which has been boiled down as an extract from the major religions on earth to 30 very brief paragraphs. I would urge all of you to read those again if you haven't read them recently. And you'll see that one of the key aspects which we are failing on throughout the world is the fair treatment of women and girls. That's just one of those, but it's a very important thing. I have pledged myself for the rest of my life, I'll be 94 this year, to devote my time to finding equality among people on earth. And I don't have any problem in my own life because my wife has always been, I would say, superior to me. But we've been married now 72 years. I said 73 this morning. And I have pledged to try to look upon other people who are different from me the same way, with respect and even with love, like I look on my own wife. That's a pretty big commitment. But I promise you, having gotten this award, with which I'm very proud, that I would try to adhere to it. Thank you very much.